Okay, good morning everybody. Thank you so much for showing up despite of the hard partying yesterday. I really appreciate that you're here. My name is Aaron. I come from Berlin. I'm very happy to be in Singapore, and I'll give some more kind of political talk, like utopia, so to speak. Anybody here completely new to Bitcoin? Please show me your hand. I don't believe you, come on. Now, Bitcoin is a global payment system. It's a new form of money, decentralized. You can pay directly from human being to human being without the need of any intermediary, without the need for banks or any government control, which is awesome. I think it's the most disruptive innovation since the internet, or maybe even more disruptive. So I think it can really lead us to a new form of society in the long run. But first, a few words about myself. My name is Aaron Koenig. I've been working in the creative internet industry since 1994, so quite a while. I founded some startups. I'm involved with Bitcoin since early 2011, I would say. I didn't buy any then, unfortunately. Otherwise, well. But what I do at the moment mostly for my living is film production. I'm a director, producer for short animated commercials. We call bit film. Sounds like one more of those companies with a bit or coin in the name, but we have this name since 1999, so we're a bit older than Bitcoin. But it's not only a coincidence. I think more than half our clients at the moment are Bitcoin startups. Might have seen some of those films. If you have some time, I might show you one later. I've been blogging about Bitcoin since, I think, spring 2011. We also did some kind of libertarian magazine. And the first issue we already sold for Bitcoin in October 2011, and we did a special issue just on Bitcoin in January. I'm also running a monthly event in Berlin. It's a mixture of maybe you might be familiar with the concept of the Satoshi Square that started in New York. We do that so you can come and buy and sell Bitcoins. It's not that much about a business. It's more about informing people, educating. We usually have some speakers from abroad, so if you have something interesting to say, want to come to Berlin, please let me know. We're always happy to have new speakers. I also work a bit voluntarily for a thing called the Global Bitcoin Alliance, which is a decentralized network of all kinds of associations, organizations, local groups that promote Bitcoin. So a bit like the Bitcoin Foundation, but more bottom-up and more decentralized. I'm also working on Bitcoin startups, but they are not ready yet. I'll tell you later, maybe. But now back to the topic of my talk. How can Bitcoin pave the way for free society? I've got three parts with three little icons: the money monopoly, the blockchainification of everything, and the decentralized society. Well, first of all, I think we all have to be aware that the current monetary system that we have is really, really bad. Yeah, it's not just obsolete and cumbersome, it really damages. It leads to so many damages in society, and it's not a God-given thing. The system that we have in its pure form, that it's just money that can be created out of thin air, banks can just create money, the central banks, the governments, it only exists in this pure form since 1971, since President Nixon canceled the gold backing of the dollar. So it's a relatively new thing in human history, and it was a bad mistake, so we should change it. Because this privilege leads to a lot of the banks of just creating money out of nothing, creates a lot of damages. It leads to economic bubbles and very irresponsible behavior. You have lots of government debts, all the bubbles that you see, and a lot of the injustice in the world today is caused by the monetary system. Maybe you guys know because you're into Bitcoin, maybe some of you, but most of the people don't. And I think it's very important to know about that. So if you want to know more about that, I mean, I'm just scratching the surface here. I deeply recommend the books of authors of the Austrian School of Economics, like Murray Rothbard or Ludwig von Mises, Friedrich August von Hayek. And they prefer free market money. I mean, market that's not created by the state or central authority, and it's voluntarily accepted by people because of the special qualities. And for many, many decades and thousands of years, it was usually gold and silver because of the qualities, because of the scarcity and fungibility. There are a number of qualities that good money should have. And that kind of money leads to stability, economic stability and reasonable behavior. And the great thing about Bitcoin is it has exactly those same qualities that made gold and silver the money of choice for thousands of years. But it has some special qualities because you cannot send gold through the internet. Okay, there was no internet 5,000 years ago, but now, of course, it's very important. So Bitcoin is kind of like gold, but even a bit better. Now, the question is how to get from this flawed system that we have now with all these injustices and all these damages, how can we get to a sound monetary system? Some Austrian economists suggest to go back to the gold standard as we had it in the 19th century. Well, I think it would be very unlikely to do that because, I mean, all the governments would have to work together, and you can also cancel the gold standard again, as usually governments do when they need to finance a war. Then there's not enough gold to do it. So in 1914, the gold standard was there for the whole 19th century, led to a lot of economic stability and growth, was cancelled to just fund the First World War. So usually, probably that will not work in today's world. And the second solution, which was, I think, first published by Friedrich August von Hayek, the Nobel Prize winner in 1976 or so, it's a competition of currencies. So to abolish the monopoly of the state and to let just competition show which money will be the best. And the great thing about this, we don't have to introduce it. It's already there. We have it now. I mean, it's tiny. Bitcoin is in its infancy. It's very new. But it has already broken the monopoly of the government. And, well, competition is usually good. We see this in the economy. No central authority will be needed. So this is the thing about the money. So I'm very, very sure that Bitcoin is something like Bitcoin, is much better money than the money that we have today. But we have to understand Bitcoin is much, much more than just money. It is, first and foremost, a new technology that can change many things in the world, not just the way we pay. All kinds of deals between humans, all situations where you have to come to a consensus between people who don't know each other, who don't trust each other, which was not possible before Bitcoin. The real innovation about Bitcoin is not the cryptography, that was there before. It's not that you can send money over the internet, we do that all the time. But it's really that thing where you find a consensus with people you don't know, that you don't trust. And the great innovation of Bitcoin was the so-called blockchain. The Bitcoiners know that term. It's a bit technical, I don't go into the details, but you just have to know with a blockchain you can agree on things with strangers somewhere in the world, and you can prove it, and you don't need any third party, no central authority to kind of stamp your agreement. And that means this revolution innovation can be used for many things. It can be used for sending cash, because with a digital thing, I mean, you could just, if it's digital, you can, the copy is as good as the original. That's the problem. So I can send you some Bitcoin, but who knows that the same Bitcoin I sent to somebody else, so I would cheat. And the blockchain makes sure this is impossible to happen, and it makes sure without any central authority that proves that. It's just in the system by the software. And that principle can be used for many things, not just for sending money. It can be used for contracts, for shares, for bonds, for domain names. There's so many things people work on now with the blockchain, with principles similar to Bitcoin. We had a great talk yesterday by David Johnson from the Bit Angels about all kinds of decentralized applications. You can get storage space and bandwidth. There's so many things. We're really entering a new age of decentralization based on technology. And that is revolutionary. Let me give you one example. For instance, don't know how it works here in Singapore, but in Germany, if you buy a house, of course, you have to prove, somebody has to prove that this was really his house, and then you buy it, and then you have to prove that now this house is mine. And how did it work in the old days, or still today? There's a central register. You go there, you enter, you pay a lot of notary fees, it takes a long time. There's usually, in Germany, there's a high real estate transfer tax, all these things. And all this is completely unnecessary. They could do it easily. The same thing can be done using the blockchain. I mean, it's just about proving ownership. And this is doable without any costs and with a time span of 10 minutes. That's how long it takes to confirm such a transaction. So we can see there's so many ways what can be done with the blockchain. And I think we haven't seen anything yet. We're really just in the very, very early stages. And this can lead to a new society. the decentralized society. It's all about decentralization. I think that's the most important word for Bitcoin. It's not so much that it's virtual. I mean, all kind of money is virtual today. And it's digital. Yes, sure, everything is digital today. But most important, it's decentralized, and it will change the way we live together, the way we interact. Well, the title of my topic was the free society. What do I mean by that? I mean a society where all relations between people are voluntary, not by force, but really voluntary. We only do what we want to do, not that somebody else tells us to do. Of course, there are some things where you need to use some force. I mean, to prevent somebody from murdering somebody else. I mean, there will be no society without crime and without force. But it's very important to define the rules in such a way that there can only be laws, and force is only you can only use force to prevent crimes. And crimes means, of course, not like insulting the president or something stupid like that, but a real crime where it's a real victim, or the law is only there to protect lives and health and property of people. And I also talk about voluntary funding of public service where Bitcoin can play a role. So what do we have now? In the last, I don't know, couple of hundreds, thousands of years, we have lived in a thing called the state, which is one way to organize a society, but maybe not the best way. I mean, it's a regional monopoly of force. A monopoly is bad by itself. There's no competition, people tend to get lazy. And things that are run by force, I mean, usually they don't run so well, as you can see with most of states. Maybe Singapore is an exception, but most states, most governments, they simply don't work well. There's a lot of corruption, a lot of inefficiency, and that's a flaw of the system itself, because it's very natural. If you have to do something by force, you usually don't do it so well. If you do it because you like it, the results will be much better. And the state usually pretends to serve everybody, to be good to all the citizens. But that's a lie. Usually only a very small group of people benefit from that power. And the state funds its activities through ways which usually, for everybody else, would be called criminal. It would be called robbery, taking away somebody's property with force, or counterfeiting money. But the state has that privilege to do it, and they don't call it robbery and counterfeiting. They call it taxation and whatever, monetary policy or something like that. But what it really is a fraud, is a crime. And it leads to economic inefficiency and irresponsible behavior. And what Bitcoin does, and that's the cool thing about Bitcoin, it takes away power from the state. Because the state does not have any control over the transfer of property, because it's just peer-to-peer, just happens over the net. There's no single point of failure where the state could grab it. The state has no more power to rob people's property, and they would lose the power to counterfeit money. There's no need for central authorities at all in this Bitcoin-based society. And that really could lead to a new era in human evolution. And when we look back in history, the decentralized society is not entirely new. Before the coming of agriculture, I mean, for tens of thousands of years, human beings have lived in very small tribes, and everybody would know everybody else. So there was no need for this big hierarchy of the big king and pharaoh. People would arrange themselves. Everybody knew everybody else, so there was a certain level of trust. But when people start to live in big cities and big states, that wasn't possible anymore. So there was this bad system of control, command, of hierarchy, authority, and there was probably no better way to do it in the last, I don't know, few thousand years, which is actually a short glimpse in human history. And we are now able to build up a new form of decentralized society where you can live without having to trust anybody you know. It's a new, because the technology takes that place. So, a decentralized society has many advantages, and we can see that very well in the economy. A centralized economy usually does not work. We have seen it in the Soviet Union, we have seen it in communist China, and usually leads to corruption, to inefficiency, whereas a free market, where decision-making is decentralized, works much better. Just the experience that we have. You can see it very well in China before Deng Xiaoping and after. I mean, how much it's grown since then. And a decentralized society relies on certain pillars. It's communications. That's what we have already. The internet has definitely changed a lot. We see it in finance with Bitcoin, but there are also more things to it. We can think about a society with decentralized law, where competing agencies offer their legal services, and also decentralized production, with the advent of 3D printing and aquaponics, all these things. So we're really entering a new stage of human history. And then you might think, okay, but if there's no state, what about all these great public services that we have? Who will do that? Who will build the road? Yeah, that famous question. And I'm very sure that most of the services that are currently provided by a state can be provided better and cheaper by private enterprises. There might be some where that is not the case, but then there's a way to organize yourself without this central control force authority. I'm very sure that's possible to build non-profit associations, foundations, and people will pay for it voluntarily. I mean, people want to have some services like, public libraries, public pools, things like that, and they are definitely ready to pay for that. And Bitcoin can play a role here. I mean, I could imagine a city where all the tasks that you may want to fund, like, public libraries here or public transport there, every task has a public Bitcoin account, and people can just pay their tax money, their voluntary tax money, to the task they think is the best to fund. Yeah? So citizens vote in a way by just putting money to it. So I think it's much better that the citizens take the budget decisions, because it's their money, and they know much better to do with it than the politicians, who are usually irresponsible, which is natural. I don't mean that politicians are bad people. Just when you can spend other people's money, you will never do it in the same responsible way as with your own. That's just natural. That's just human nature. So what would be the next steps? Of course, this is a long, this is a big picture, utopian thing, but what would be the next steps to go there? The first thing is to abolish the state's monopoly. So all legal tender laws, all the laws that force people to use a certain kind of money, we should just abolish them and then see what happens. We already have Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, whatever. We have the dollar and the euro. I don't want to forbid the dollar, the euro. I think there should just be fair competition, and then people can decide. I would go for Bitcoin, I think, rather than dollars. And we should abolish all laws that do not protect people's life, liberty, or property. So all the laws which are like, maintaining the public order, all these vague things which usually government just misuse to control people, those laws should be illegal. And I would take away control over public budgets from politicians and give it to the people. So that would be my way to a free society. Now I'm very excited to hear your take on it and your questions. Any questions?
What is BitFilm?
Oh, BitFilm, it's a production company for films, and if...
But are you making a movie about Bitcoin?
We're doing commercial films. So if a client comes and pays us, we do a film for what they do. And as we know Bitcoin a bit, we're Bitcoiners ourselves, people like what we do because they don't have to explain Bitcoin for us. They just have to explain what they do. So if you like, I can give you a world premiere. Is that okay?
Yeah. It
will be Wall Street 3 for a client called Bitcoin Trader. And they came to us, and nobody has seen this film before. It's I'm allowed to show it. It will be published soon, and it's kind of a parody in a way. You'll see. Does the sound work? Let me see. Yeah, it works. Louder.
We need to talk. Looks like times are getting a bit rough.
Yeah, it seems to be the biggest economic crisis since 1929, and maybe worse.
Can we go short?
No, derivatives are dead. We need to restart our business model.
What do you suggest?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin? This toy money for geeks?
Let's look at the facts. The Bitcoin price has gone up 15,000% in the last year, and Bitcoin is rare as gold.
Come on, but how do you make money out of this?
Well, one way is mining, but you need to invest in special hardware that generates new Bitcoins. The other is trading. The Bitcoin price differs a lot in the various exchanges, so you can make a good profit by arbitrage trading.
Sounds like a very steep learning curve before you start making money. We don't have the time for this.
The trick is to let other people work for you. Then you can make money from day one.
This sounds awesome, but who would do this for us?
Let's try Bitcoin Trader. They do the mining and trading for you, and you make money while enjoying life.
That That's the way I like it.
Let Bitcoin Trader make money for you the easy way.
How do you present Bitcoin, which is often perceived as something intimidating for those that are not familiar with technology, and how do you make it something very friendly in the way that Doge has? What do you think?
Exactly. You know, you're absolutely right. I mean, this was not exactly friendly. Yeah? I mean, these are the bad guys. But the idea is, the client wanted to
making
provoke.
money and living on the beach and having cocktails. Actually,
Yeah, okay, that's good. But the first, I mean, if those bad guys, if even they take over Bitcoin, something must be to it. I mean, I think that was the idea why the client wanted to have some kind of Wall Street 3 sequel with Gordon Gecko types. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's all about communication now. I mean, the technology is there, technology works. Of course, it has to be refined. But I think now it's communicating it, making it easy to use. Now it's really the time for the entrepreneurs and, you know, people like you, people who set up these conferences and, you know, get the word out. I absolutely agree.
Any other questions?
I constantly have this sense of unleashing some strange power, which can, as you say, free the people, but I yet don't know which will be the final outcome of such unleashing. Don't you feel sometimes like
you're scared about that?
Not really scared, but not knowing what we are really achieving?
Okay, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice kind of thing, yeah, when the genie is out of the bottle and nobody knows what will happen. Okay, I mean, the genie is out of the bottle and will not put it back. Nobody is able to stop Bitcoin. Yeah? Nobody can ban Bitcoin. And it will change a lot of things. But I mean, see the world as it is today. I mean, it's not the best place. I think it can be much better. So I don't think we have to lose. We can lose that much. I think there's so much room for improvement. So I'm very optimistic about that. But I mean, the transition time might be tough, yeah. But that's not because of Bitcoin. It's because the current system that we have, it will collapse inevitably. There's no way around. It's just the way how bad it will be, how many people will suffer. So I think we should not concentrate that much about fighting the old system. I think that's a waste of time, but it'll go away anyway. It will. I think we should focus on building up the new thing. Maybe now everything's so underestimated. Everybody's thinking, Bitcoin, yeah, that's just for freaks, just for some nerd guys. And I heard exactly the same thing 20 years ago when the internet was new. All people said, who needs that? And who will send an email just for computer nerds? And I heard exactly the same thing about Bitcoin. And you see how much the internet has changed the world. You cannot imagine the world without the internet. And I'm very sure in like 5-10 years' time, we cannot imagine a world where banks just make money, where governments can control monetary supply. This will sound so ridiculous for us, like sending a fax or whatever. Carbon copy sounds to young generation today, I think.
Any other questions? Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.